Imagine standing in pitch darkness on a freezing beach, knowing millions of enemy guns are pointed at you. The air smells of salt, fear, and the distant thunder of warships creeping closer through the cold mist. This was the single day that decided whether humanity would live in freedom or die under tyranny. 6,000 vessels, carrying the ultimate fate of human civilization, slowly emerged from the grey storm. For 4 brutal years, Nazi Germany held Europe in a dark, terrifying, and suffocating grip. Hitler's Atlantic Wall stood impenetrable, a monster of concrete, jagged steel, and millions of active mines. To breach this fortress was deemed suicidal, an impossible mission of total madness. Yet, on this wet, violent June morning, ordinary men prepared to do the impossible. In the hidden forests of southern England, 3 million young soldiers waited in absolute silence. They spent their final hours sharpening steel, cleaning weapons, and writing letters they hoped would never be sent. The tension was a physical weight, thick enough to choke the men crowded in muddy camps. Everything rested on the shoulders of one quiet man, the supreme Allied commander, preparing for the most decisive operation of the war. The original launch date was ruined as the English Channel conjured a wild, howling hurricane. Delaying the assault meant the tides would change, giving away their secret to German spies. The Allied commander sat alone in a cold Portsmouth briefing room, listening to rain hammer against the windows as the weight of history rested on his shoulders. If he sent them into the storm, thousands of young boys would drown in the rough seas. The Allied commander paced the floor in painful silence, his tired face reflecting the immense weight of the decision before him. After a long moment of silence, the Allied commander looked out into the cold rain and quietly gave the order that would change the course of history. Just after midnight, the stormy sky erupted with the roar of 2,000 transport planes. 18,000 paratroopers stood in the dark, preparing to jump straight into enemy territory. The signal lights turned green, and men leaped blindly into the cold, screaming wind. But a thick fog blinded the pilots, scattering soldiers miles away from their intended zones. Many plummeted into deep, flooded marshes, dragged underwater by their 8-pound combat gear. Others drifted down directly over German-held villages, targeted by heavy anti-aircraft fire in the dark. In the pitch-black woods, isolated soldiers crawled through thick mud, listening for enemy footsteps. They used tiny brass cricket toys to communicate, clicking in the dark to find friends. One metal click was met with 2. A silent pause meant a German patrol was nearby. Despite the total chaos, this scattered drop confused the German generals, fracturing their defense lines. False reports spread quickly, making the enemy believe a massive force had already surrounded them. As the clock ticked toward dawn, the main naval armada silently closed in on France. In their massive concrete bunkers, German sentries stared out into the heavy morning mist. They believed the stormy weather made any sea landing impossible on this freezing morning. But as the fog slowly lifted, their blood ran cold at the sight of 6,000 ships. Suddenly, the horizon lit up in blinding yellow flashes as Allied battleships opened fire. A terrifying storm of heavy steel shells rained down, shaking the earth beneath the bunkers. Giant explosions tore through the beach defenses, sending concrete and sand flying into the sky. Yet, many of the deepest German bunkers survived the bombardment, their heavy guns still active. Field Marshal Rommel's deadly beach traps lay waiting, ready to tear landing craft apart. The tide was rising fast, and the first wave of soldiers was moving in. At exactly 6:30, the flat-bottomed Higgins boats scraped against the shallow shores. Inside the steel boats, men shivered in the choking smell of vomit and diesel fumes. They could hear the terrifying sound of machine gun bullets rattling against the outer metal ramps. At Omaha Beach, the ocean breeze brought a storm of lethal lead and fire. The moment the front ramps fell, German MG-42 machine guns tore through the first ranks. Soldiers leaped into freezing, chest-deep water, struggling to keep their heavy rifles dry. Many were dragged down by the waves, drowning before they could even reach the shore. Those who made it crawled onto the sand, which had quickly turned a tragic, dark crimson. The beach was a chaotic cemetery of burning tanks, discarded gear, and fallen young men. For agonizing hours, survivors clung to a small shingle wall, pinned down by relentless fire. No one could advance, and returning to the stormy sea meant certain death.
It was here, in the face of total slaughter, that ordinary men became heroes!
Gritty sergeants and young officers stood up in the open, waving their men forward. They screamed above the noise, "Those who stay on this beach are going to die!" Using heavy explosives, they blasted a path through the tangled wire, ignoring the gunfire. With raw determination, they crawled up the steep, muddy cliffs directly toward the enemy bunkers. A few miles away, at Pointe du Hoc, elite rangers scaled a sheer 100-foot cliff. Using wet ropes and ladders, they climbed under heavy fire to destroy critical German cannons. By afternoon, Allied destroyers risked running aground, firing directly into the stubborn concrete nests. One by one, the German guns fell silent, and the mighty Atlantic Wall finally crumbled. Fresh tanks, heavy supplies, and millions of troops began pouring onto French soil. As the sun set over the English Channel, the tide washed over a silent battlefield. 10,000 brave young men had fallen, their blood forever mixed with the French sand. But their sacrifice cracked open the Nazi fortress, bringing a ray of hope to Europe. The longest day had ended, and the road to ultimate victory had finally begun. Today, Normandy is quiet once more, the ocean waves washing gently over the golden shores. Thousands of silent, white marble crosses stand as a beautiful monument to their eternal courage. If you want to keep exploring the history that shaped our world, please subscribe today.
What legendary battle should we reconstruct next? Let us know in the comments below.